Greetings, friends! Today we dive into an essential topic for all preppers out there, bugging out. It's a term that's often thrown around in prepping circles, but what does it really mean? In essence, bugging out is the act of leaving your home in response to an emergency situation. It's about having a plan, packing a bag, and knowing exactly where you're going when disaster strikes. But hold on a minute. Bugging out isn't as simple as it sounds, and there are many misconceptions out there that can lead you down the wrong path. Misunderstandings can be detrimental, especially when it comes to something as critical as your survival. That's why it's crucial to separate fact from fiction, to ensure you're making the best decisions for you and your loved ones in times of crisis. You might have heard that bugging out should always be your first option, or that any old bug-out bag will do. Perhaps you've been told that you can bug out to anywhere, or that it's best to go it alone. Some may even suggest that living off the land indefinitely is feasible, or that the bigger your bug-out bag, the better. These myths and others can cloud your judgment and lead to poor decision-making. They can make you ill-prepared for the realities of a true emergency situation, and ultimately, they could put your survival at risk. That's why we're here today, to debunk these myths and set the record straight. We're going to explore each one in detail, providing you with the information you need to make informed decisions about your own emergency preparedness. We're going to help you understand what bugging out really involves and how to do it effectively and safely. So let's debunk the top 10 bugging out myths. Myth number 1, bugging out is always the first option. This is a common misconception that can lead to hasty and potentially dangerous decisions. It's important to remember that bugging out is often a last resort, not the initial response. The key is to assess the situation carefully. Know your surroundings, understand the threats, and evaluate your options. You may find that staying put or bugging in is actually safer and more practical in some scenarios. Now let's move on to myth number 2. Any bug-out bag will do. This is another widely held belief that can hinder your survival in an emergency situation. A bug-out bag is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It should be customized to meet your specific needs and those of your family. Consider the geographical area you live in and its seasonal variations. For example, if you live in a region with harsh winters, your bug-out bag should include items like thermal blankets and hand warmers. On the other hand, if you're in a tropical climate, insect repellent and rain gear might be more important. It's also crucial to keep in mind any personal needs like prescription medications or dietary restrictions. The contents of your bug-out bag should be reviewed and updated regularly. What worked for you last year might not be suitable this year. And remember, the goal of a bug-out bag is to support you for about 72 hours, the critical window in which most emergency situations are either resolved or become more manageable. So let's debunk these myths. Bugging out is not always the first option. It's a serious decision that should be based on a thorough assessment of the situation. And when it comes to bug-out bags, customization is key. Tailor your bug-out bag to your personal needs, your geographical location, and the seasons. Remember, your bug-out bag should be tailored to your needs, and bugging out is not always the best first step. Take the time to plan, prepare, and practice. This way, when an emergency strikes, you'll be ready to respond effectively and efficiently. Moving on to myth number 3, that you can bug out to anywhere. This is a common misconception that can lead to some dangerous situations. The reality is, bugging out isn't a spontaneous camping trip. It's a strategic move to a safer location, one that requires careful thought and planning. Think about it. If disaster strikes, the last thing you want is to hit the road without a clear destination in mind. Aimlessly wandering can lead you into unknown, possibly dangerous territory. Instead, you need a predetermined destination, a safe haven that's been thoroughly scouted and is known to provide shelter, water, and possibly food. But having a destination isn't enough. You also need a well-planned route to get there. This route should be familiar, easily navigable, and have several alternative paths in case your primary course is blocked or unsafe. A good bug-out plan also takes into account different modes of transportation and the potential need to proceed on foot if necessary. Now let's tackle myth number 4, that bugging out is a solo endeavor. While Hollywood might glorify the lone wolf survivalist, real-life survival is often a group effort. Having a support network can greatly enhance your chances of making it through a crisis situation. We're social creatures by nature. We rely on each other for support, both emotional and physical. In a survival situation, having a group means more hands to gather food and water, more eyes to keep watch, and more brains to solve problems. Plus, there's the added benefit of shared skills and knowledge. One person might be an expert in first aid, another in navigation, and yet another in wilderness survival. Together, you have a far greater pool of resources to draw from. So, remember, bugging out isn't a casual road trip, and it's not a one-person show. It requires careful planning, a clear destination, and a well-thought-out route. And just as importantly, it's always better when you're not alone. Survival is a team sport, and your odds of success increase dramatically when you have others by your side. Now let's address the fifth myth, that you can live off the land indefinitely. This is a romantic notion, isn't it? Just you, nature, and the promise of unlimited resources. But in reality, it's a lot more complex than that. Living off the land requires a specialized set of skills that many of us simply do not possess. Sure, you might know how to fish or set up a basic snare, but what about identifying edible plants, or tracking animals, or making a fire without matches or a lighter? These are all skills that need to be honed over time. Plus, the land itself may not always provide. What if you're in a drought-stricken area, or a place where game is scarce? Relying solely on the land for sustenance can be a risky endeavor, and it's always smart to have a backup plan. And this leads us to the sixth myth. The bigger the bug-out bag, the better. It's easy to see why this myth persists. After all, wouldn't you want to have as many resources as possible in an emergency situation? But here's the thing. A heavier bag means reduced mobility. It means more energy expended on carrying it. It means a greater risk of injury. And it means less space for truly essential items. Instead of packing your bag to the brim, focus on the essentials. Think about what you'll need for the first 72 hours. This includes food, water, basic medical supplies, a source of heat, and shelter. It's also a good idea to pack multi-purpose items like a Swiss Army knife or a bandana, which can be used in a variety of ways. Remember, the goal of a bug-out bag is not to sustain you indefinitely, but to help you survive until you reach a safe location or until help arrives. A bigger bug-out bag is not always better, and living off the land is not as simple as it seems. So, let's ditch these myths and focus on the facts. Your survival may depend on it. Myth number 7. There's no need to practice bugging out. This couldn't be further from the truth. Regular drills are essential to ensure everyone in your group knows the plan and can execute it under pressure. Imagine you're in a high-stress situation. The last thing you want is confusion or panic because you're unsure of the next steps. Practicing bugging out helps you streamline your process, identify any potential issues, and build confidence in your plan. Now let's move on to myth number 8. Bugging out will always keep you safe. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. Leaving a secure location can expose you to potential dangers and unpredictable situations. While having a solid bug-out plan is crucial, remember that it is a last resort. The unknown variables of the outside world do not always equate to safety. Remember, bugging out does not guarantee safety, and practice makes perfect. The 9th myth, all you need is a map and a compass. But let's rethink that. Yes, maps and compasses are fundamental, but they're not the be-all and end-all of navigation. In our digital age, it's equally important to become well-versed in using modern navigation tools. GPS devices, for example, can provide real-time location data and track your route. But remember, always have a backup plan. Electronic devices can fail, so don't forget your trusty map and compass, and make sure you know how to use them effectively. Now let's shift gears to our 10th myth. Your regular vehicle is ready for bugging out. Not so fast. Your everyday car might not be equipped to handle the rigors of off-road or long-distance travel. Regular maintenance checks are crucial, and depending on where you're headed, modifications like reinforced bumpers or off-road tires might be necessary. Your regular vehicle may not be bug-out ready, and navigation requires more than just a map and compass. Let's wrap up what we've learned today. In our journey to debunk the top 10 bugging out myths, we've shed light on some crucial realities that every prepper should be aware of. We've learned that bugging out isn't always the first option, but rather a last resort when all else fails. Your home is your fortress, and leaving it should only be considered when absolutely necessary. We've also discovered that not just any bug-out bag will do. A one-size-fits-all approach could leave you unprepared. Your bug-out bag should be customized to your unique needs, taking into account your geographical location and the time of year. In debunking the 3rd myth, we've understood that bugging out isn't a journey into the unknown. You need to have a predetermined destination and route planned and scouted in advance. We've tackled the lone wolf syndrome, revealing that bugging out isn't a solo endeavor. Having a support network or group can significantly enhance your chances of survival. In response to the fifth myth, we've highlighted the impracticality of living off the land indefinitely without prior skills and constant practice. A sustainable source of food and water is crucial. We've touched upon the myth that bigger is always better, discussing the downsides of an overly heavy bug-out bag. Mobility is key, and your bag should only contain essential items. We've emphasized that practice makes perfect. Regular drills ensure all family members know the plan and can execute it under stress. We've also talked about the potential dangers and unpredictability of leaving a secure location. Bugging out does not guarantee safety. We've debunked the myth that all you need is a map and a compass. Modern navigation tools and backup paper maps are crucial, and you should familiarize yourself with navigation skills before an emergency. Finally, we've stressed the importance of vehicle preparedness. Your regular vehicle might not be ready for bugging out, and regular maintenance and modifications might be necessary. We encourage you to assess your own bugging out plans and share your experiences or myths you've encountered. And remember, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful prepping content.